There are culturally powerful forces in our country actively working to bring down the traditional nuclear family. Why? First of all, because the strong family structure of a country prevents the government from taking absolute power. 2, because the strong family structure raises children to be more moral, and those who want to bring the country down have to devalue its morals. 3rd, because the strong family structure restrains the indoctrination efforts of institutions. You see, if the goal is power, you need systemic control of how people think and how they act. A strong nuclear family gets in the way of their quest for power, so it must be destroyed. A strong and healthy family often builds people of character, confidence, and mental health. They are people who will resist government recklessness and stupidity. A strong, healthy family teaches discipline, self-control, and morality. They are people who will call out the ever-present push to drag society down morally. A strong, healthy family builds self-esteem and provides a bond that better helps people cope with stress and problems and have more stable emotional lives. There's a sense of belonging and community. But leaders who are power-hungry want us separated, disunified, and fighting with each other. A strong, healthy family often leads to better friendships, stable relationships, and a sense of happiness. Strong, healthy families are less prone to crime. They contribute more to responsible, moral, hard-working people of integrity that create a stable and productive workforce for both economic gain and societal strength. Strong, healthy families raise responsible, educated voters. Hopefully by now you can see why there are many forces that want to not only suppress these attributes, but further destroy them. In a government seeking unlimited power, the family must go. In a country obsessed with immorality, the family must go. For education and media to keep feeding the beast that empowers and enriches them, the family must go. It's an assault from many sides. I see forces actively working every day to destroy families. We must be alert to their schemes, resist their incursions, and if we truly want to provide a place of safety and security for our children and for all of society, to eliminate this branch of influence in a country and the world, it'll lead to nowhere except trouble. So the first nefarious force trying to destroy the family is our own government. See, the Marxist or socialist element of our federal government, of which there is a group of people, are trying to destroy the family. As Candace Owens said,
you study the ideas of socialism and Karl Marx behind it, the number one thing that he teaches and what the government understands is that you have to collapse the family unit. It must be destroyed. What stands between the government and absolute power is the family unit.
Karl Marx argued that the nuclear family performs ideological functions for capitalism that he objected to. He said the family acts as a unit of consumption and teaches passive acceptance of hierarchy. It is also the institution through which the wealthy pass down their private property to their children, thus reproducing class inequality, he said. And institutions such as the family perform the function of ideological control, or convincing the masses that the present unequal system is inevitable, natural, and good. Therefore, a central tenet of Marxism is the dismantling of the nuclear family structure. So you see, socialism is about control, and control is about power. And true power comes through controlling what people think. Whoever can control how you think, control what you hear, and control events can control the future. Socialism works best with power at its core and ignorance everywhere else. Such power can be almost unlimited in effect, but of course it's always for your protection and well-being. F. A. Hayek writes, open quote, "Socialism requires that the leadership has to exercise totalitarian control of the thoughts and the process. Economic control must go hand in hand with political control. It requires that they ignore individual values, personal freedoms, and honoring the individual. The most extensive government control produces a psychological change, an alteration in the character of people. This is a necessarily slow affair, taking place not over a few years, but rather over 1 or 2 generations. The political ideas of a people and its attitude towards authority are as much the effect as the cause of the political institutions under which it lives. Even a strong tradition of political liberty is no safeguard if the danger is precisely that new institutions and policies will gradually undermine and destroy that spirit." Close quote. Another way the federal government is working to destroy the family is by creating generational dependency through welfare in a socialist state. Things like guaranteed minimum income, free health care for all proposals, cancel student debt proposals, or equity in the workplace proposals. If they give you enough free stuff, they own you and can control you. Such welfarism bolsters up the belief that families, and particularly fathers, can and should be replaced by government social programs. All of this is designed so that the families have less influence and the government has more. The federal government is also breaking up families with its open border policies. We see children being hustled across the border without parents. When families do come over together, the system can separate them. The government is also breaking up families by contributing to the homelessness crisis. Living on the streets is no place for a healthy family. The whole situation, as we have seen, creates filth, despair, separation, immorality, poverty, crime, and tragedy. The government is breaking up families through our educational system. Think of a few of these points. Transitioning children without parental consent, and then telling the kids not to inform their parents. They're driving a wedge between children and their parents. It makes me think about the Youth League in George Orwell's book, 1984. The Youth League was a pro-government training ground for young people. They were asked to spy on their parents. They were asked to turn in their parents. They were taught to yell slogans instead of dialogue. Orwell writes, quote, "Most children were horrible, turned into ungovernable little savages by the party," close quote. Another issue here, undermining the nuclear family with pornographic books about gay and trans, advocating, destigmatizing, and legalizing same-sex marriage. It breaks up the nuclear family. Also, according to a recent survey by Change Research, 58% of women surveyed said it's a red flag if a potential male partner says there are only 2 genders. We have more people never marrying, never having children, or insisting on novel modes of family life. Another point, socialism distinguishes their members from others by modes of greeting and forms of address. We are seeing this in the insistence on bizarre pronouns, or you will face prosecution, fining, or even firing. The government is breaking up families by curtailing freedom of speech and freedom of the press. Universities are doing that too. You see, socialism seeks to protect members from being infected by other views. It does that by controlling what we can say and not, by changing history, by controlling the media, and thereby telling you what you can and can't think or say. If an individual feels alone or alienated without reference and unable to discern what is right from wrong, they turn on each other. And the government can be your savior. Speaking of Marxism and the cultural forces trying to break up the nuclear family, BLM, or Black Lives Matter, is such an organization. In their original website about themselves, they wrote, quote, "We dismantle the patriarchal practice. We disrupt the Western prescribed nuclear family structure requirement by supporting each other as extended families and villages that collectively care for one another, especially our children, to the degree that mothers, parents, and children are comfortable," close quote. Co-founder of BLM, Patrisse Cullors, describes herself and fellow co-founder Alicia Garza as trained Marxists. In 2020, this statement was removed from their website. But even though they've taken it off their website, it's still one of their core beliefs: breaking up the nuclear family. The LGBT movement is also one of those cultural forces. They have been working to redefine family for decades now and are creating many varieties of non-traditional home setups that are taking down the nuclear family. As Christians, we recognize that the nuclear family is one of God's gifts to humanity, and it is to be nourished and practiced. The nuclear family is how God designed that the knowledge of Him passed from generation to generation. It is also one of the main elements of being salt and light in the world. Lastly, the nuclear family is one of the most effective checks and balances on the culture at large. Little could we have guessed that we'd have to, at this point, defend the nuclear family. But here we are.